This is the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. We talk all things health, wealth, and community connection. Let's go. Welcome to the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. Today I have a dear friend of mine, my homie AJ, Aurimas Juodka. I got it right.
Close enough.
You
yeah.
close enough?
Yeah.
Juodka. AJ is a human optimization coach. He is the CEO of YogiLab. He is one of my close buddies. We lived together for almost 2 years. And I learned a lot living with this dude. Healthy habits, how to actually be an optimized human, which we can go into a little bit. But today I really wanted to go over how I've seen this guy grow as a human. Like, he's a big dude. He's 6'8", 250 pounds, something like that, right? He's a big boy. And he went from growing up in Lithuania, which is a pretty, like, not
Bit of a
progressive.
shithole, yeah.
Shithole, as you nicely say it. And then he went into the military, into the Coast Guard, into the States. He's a Golden Gloves boxer. You know, it was a lot in the masculine, you know? And then to see him, over the years of our friendship, I've witnessed him soften and go into his spiritual journey of practice and enjoy dancing, enjoy singing, like softening of you. And this is a big dude. You see him singing and dancing, you got to get out of his way. but it's been a pleasure just to see you grow, my friend. And you've been there for me through so much, and vice versa. And that's something I wanted to touch in on, is how to be a good friend, how to soften as a masculine, and also how to be a healthy masculine. And those are some of the things that I'm just proud that I could talk to you about, because I've seen you grow into that. So just thank you for coming today, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. That's awesome. It's going to be fun.
This has been years. Like, wow.
It has. And the funniest thing is the way we met, actually.
Yeah.
It's just the way we bonded as well. It was that crisis moment that brought us closer together. Thank you, Nick Wood.
Our homie Nick Wood almost died. So he linked us. We had a Marcel Hoff event, the breathwork event at YogiLab at the Astana. And so then to see, when I saw you walk in, first I was like, who is this tall, handsome guy? Fuck that guy. He's so big and handsome. I was jealous. And then I realized how could you hate him? He's so fucking nice. I didn't hate him. He's so nice and so gentle for this big, big dude. And you know, you get it from pretty much everybody who's ever met you. Wow, you're so tall. How tall are you? I'm sure that gets old.
Right.
Yeah. And then Nick got into an accident. He was, breathing, standing up, doing breathwork standing up, which is a no-no. Don't do that. And he passed out while he was standing up. He's also tall. He was 6'6", 6'7". He's a big guy. And ran headfirst into a concrete pole, or a pillar, wooden outside, sharp edge corner, and he cracked his skull.
Right.
He
Fractured his skull in multiple places.
From ear to ear. It was a freaking emergency setting. Like, it was crazy. We're in the middle of an event.
It was wild.
And, he's bleeding out of his ear. He's like belligerent. Like, he damaged his brain, literally.
Right.
And no one else really knew what to do except you and me handle the situation. And that's how we actually bonded.
Right.
Because there was a moment, and I'll never forget it, where
we just looked at each other like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
It's like, this might not end up well. It was just that moment when I just realized this is a true emergency situation.
Yeah.
And I thought we might not ever get him back.
Yeah.
And because everything got handled, we kind of bonded through that crisis, and that led to everything else, us partnering up with YogiLab, me stepping into the CEO role eventually.
Living together.
Exactly, us living together. It's just so many things kind of evolved from
that
there.
moment when I'm over top of Nick, and I'm like, it's gonna be okay, buddy. It's gonna be okay. And then we look at each other, we're like, like, oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Thank God Nick made it. He's okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nick Wood. And so when we also went and did a Vipassana together, your first one.
My first one in New Zealand. That was such a powerful piece for me, and it was just a massive shift for me to actually, well, as you were talking about softening, that was one of those components where I kind of broke into the pieces of my character armor that I built around myself, and then understood that there is so much more underneath that, and really stepped into that place of more heart, I guess, heart-centeredness. And I'm still working on it, to be honest with you. It's like very actively, because I do get into this stage where I am in the stage right now where I'm surrounded by absolutely fantastic individuals. And I kind of close myself off to the world around me to allow that reflection of something more besides what I have right now. It's like I'm kind of almost protecting. It's like I have these perfect individuals around me. They call me out. They help me grow. But I isolated myself from the world at large. And then when I meet random people, I'm just so inaccessible and unavailable, because as you said, it's like I am an intimidating person if I'm and just physically.
Yeah.
So it takes me just an additional extra step to step into that connection and friendship and availability, quite frankly. But if I'm not available, there is no chance people are going to approach me. They're like, I'm not going to. Yeah, exactly. It's like even I ran into this group of Lithuanians today randomly.
You never see Lithuanians out.
Right.
Rare,
And they said that they've been seeing me around for quite a while, and they never said hi because they were just kind of just intimidated. And I was like, I reflected. It was another reflection that I kind of needed to realize that, damn, I do want to engage with humans, and so they don't fear me, but actually they are able to be inspired by me rather than being feared.
It's a better look.
Being afraid. Yeah.
It's a better way, especially if you're CEO of YogiLab.
Right.
You should probably be pretty open.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
so
I think that's when I first met you too. Well, what we got to connect on is we have a fucked up sense of humor.
Right.
And so that's how we really got close, is we're funny together. Like dark, like really bad, but it's great. And
sometimes unnecessarily. Yeah.
It's way too. We take it way too far sometimes, which I love. And then to see that we were able to go deep together.
Right.
Like, okay, so we went to New Zealand. Shout out to all the Kiwis out there. We love you.
Oh
New Zealand's one of my favorite places.
That was one of the best trips.
I just love New Zealand's amazing. Awesome food, awesome air, water, plants. Like everything's so cool.
Nature is fantastic.
And the people are epic. Like, I just love Kiwis. They're like Canadians, where we're like, we're not Australia, we're not America, we're like the nicer version. No offense, just kidding. So, we got to that place. You went deep into that. You were sick the first couple of days of the
I was, man. It's like it was just everything. It felt like all the pieces of me were just bubbling up, and I was dying there. It's like I was just every single day. Exactly. I was shaking. I was like every meditation that I went to, I had like this. At first, I was trying to wipe my nose because like my nose was running so much. I just kind of gave up and put like a few tissues on my lap and just kind of head down, and I just let it drip. And it's like it actually got me deeper into meditation. Funnily enough. Yeah. So that was one of those components where I actually understood that it was psychosomatic. It wasn't just me physically being sick. It was just all the components of me bubbling up. The feelings that I never wanted to face. They were just expressing themselves through the sickness. And
it's so crazy how that is a thing. Psychosomatic illness.
It's wild. It's wild. When people say that it's either psychological or physical, there's always intertwined.
100%.
There's always intertwined, and we actually underestimate how much deeper all the things are than we just write them off as.
100%.
When you go into a doctor, it's the same thing. This is the equivalent of going to a doctor and having symptoms of whatever, headache. The headache is a symptom, and they're usually prescribing medication to suppress that symptom, whereas that headache is rooted in something. Dehydration, poor lifestyle, what have you. Stress, exactly. And so you're addressing that surface level component rather than digging deeper into what is it actually about. And we tend to just suppress and suppress and suppress and suppress. So we are so far away from that foundational layer of where that thing actually is that it takes time, it takes effort, conscious effort to actually get into that depth. And once you reach that depth, there's another layer underneath that. So
the self-work is crazy because there's always layers and layers and layers to this, right? And that armor that you talked about, the character armor, and that's deflecting a lot of the stuff. And I think that's why we get sick with those psychosomatic illnesses, is because we're not actually accessing and fully feeling the shit.
Right.
So we're just like, armor's up. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be hurt. That's why it's there.
Yeah, for sure.
Then what happens? It bubbles underneath us, right? And so much of that armor is built by society telling us, like, be a strong man in the military, you're a boxer, you gotta be this guy.
Man, that identity is heavy, honestly. And I actually, and not just that identity, we can talk about that as well, but just any identity in general that is no longer serving you is heavy. Like right now I'm going through this episode of facing myself on different layers where you see, I've been a lone wolf the whole time. And even when we worked within the team, you still saw those remnants of me being a lone wolf. And right now we have a very powerful core team of 8 people. And all these things are just being shown to me, how unwilling I am to actually work with people. And seriously, it's like, and it's just, and that's uncomfortable. It's like admitting to myself that I don't care about people who I really care about enough to actually put my personal preferences aside, that's a painful, honestly, that's a painful realization for me to see that and actually admit that, because it's so real. It's like, I quite frankly don't give a shit enough to support those individuals as compared to me giving a shit about protecting like a certain identity of me being alone. Because at the foundational level, that's what it is. And it hurts me. It's like it does hurt me, and realizing that's the reality is just, again, when you do see me in a certain setting, it kind of seems like, oh yeah, I have a lot of stuff figured out, and I really do. And
you're pretty dialed in human.
Exactly.
You're quite optimized.
Quite optimized. And seeing that, hey, this is actually the layer that I haven't tapped into, and I know how much better of a human that's gonna make me. It's tough to face, because it just there's a lot of breakage and dying, a lot of parts of me dying. Actually, I was just asked recently, it's like, what does life mean? And my first answer was just kind of grim and I guess bizarre for most people. I said that life is many deaths. And the reason why I said that, because I do see us humans as these ever evolving pieces that are constantly shifting and changing, obviously physiologically as well, but also spiritually, identity wise. And to be frank with you, it's like that optimization component is and was to get me comfortable within a certain frame, and not allowing myself to die to the next level. So what I got to figure out, that optimization is optimizing for many deaths rather than optimizing for a certain container, a certain frame.
It's like we constantly have to like let shit go, and like the depths of those things, the character armor, the identities, to let in new identities. I mean, life is a cycle of death and rebirth, spring, summer, fall, the seasons, all that, right?
For
Winter,
sure.
there's things birthing and dying, and that happens with parts of our ego. I've noticed as well, like me shifting from, you've seen me grow from all these weird places and all the crazy shit happening. And literally the near death of the accident was a chance to rebirth. And I feel way more connected to my heart, to God, to gratitude as a result of that. So I was like, net positive.
That's something, that's an interesting thing that you're using that word God right now. It's like, because, and same with me, I never use that word.
Oh, we'd
because
clown it.
I associate, exactly. I associated that with religion, associated that with something that is just, I guess.
You were a damn near atheist, like when we first met.
Pretty much. And it was just such a big shift for me once I realized what God actually is. It's like how I realized that divinity, that God, if you will, is within me. It's like, it's just a piece of that we have within ourselves. And it's not about religion at all. It's just us being truly connected to ourselves and knowing ourselves better. And that coming closer to God is living in accordance with the truth at large. So that was a big shift for me, and I'm no longer uncomfortable using that word and actually expressing and praying for that matter. Prayer is another one that really I connected with within the last year and a half or so, where praying is, I just realized that it's a reminder for ourselves to connect with the pieces that we kind of have forgotten. And our conscious mind, I always say that our conscious mind follows the law of the survival of the busiest. So the more we actually put into our conscious mind of the things that we truly want to remind ourselves of, the more it seeps into our subconscious, and we become unconsciously competent of the thing that we want to pay attention to. So that prayer ultimately is the way to bring that unconscious competence into your daily life, where you're constantly grateful, constantly connected to yourself, to your heart, to other humans on a deeper level, rather than just the superficial way of being. And as I said, I am truly dedicated to this path and going deeper into it, because I'm having a hard time liking humans.
It's true. Like, you'd be like that. You'd be like, I don't really like people. You'd say that. Just like people would annoy you. It was, and I'd get it, because I'd be quite temperamental as well. And I've always been that way, like growing up. I think around when I got a lot of concussions and grew up in a rough area, all this and that. And I was just like weary of people. And the more that I got closer to myself and actually like made friends with the ugly parts of me, the more then I was able to be totally accepting of other people. I was like less of an asshole and like
Yeah.
judgy,
For sure.
because I was able to judge myself a bit less. And I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of that judgment is just projecting
For
your
sure.
your own self-hatred.
And then again, that identity of building that up and saying things that you don't actually mean. It's like, I don't really like people. That's not true. I
Yeah.
love people. I was
Yeah,
like, I
you do.
truly do love people. And then you are kind of putting on this act for humor sometimes too. And
Yeah.
actually, Dave, who obviously our common friend, he kind of called me out on that and saying that, hey, you see that a caricature actually becomes the reality, and me empowering that caricature way too often and not consciously, pulling myself up on it, just becoming a habit ultimately becomes a part of me,
Yeah.
and that I do act like I don't like people, and I do become that closed off person.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of like, if we want to act like a good person, just
Right.
talk and think like one, and it'll
Exactly.
happen, right? So
Exactly.
I'm like, okay, I really had to look into that, where I'm like, I'm deeply loving.
Right.
And I had to really like, and the more I say that, and the more that I actually meditate on my heart and love, the more I just feel better.
Right.
And so when I've been praying lately, I just pray on gratitude for like all that this is, all
Right.
that is. And I feel this like deep love for existence. And I guess I'd call it God,
Right.
whatever's binding all of this together. And I just feel like, okay, that was kind of how I'd pray, would just be on a gratitude space. And that was okay, because I couldn't be like just like the regular prayer. I never learned how to pray.
Yeah.
Like, it's another,
I have, but it's just I never connected with it.
Yeah.
I never connected with it, even on a deeper level. I just couldn't really get to that point, because there's so much within the religious setting
Yeah.
that is so wrong,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I morally do not connect with that. So it just I kind of let that go, and
you and me would have like cringe factor on
Right,
it.
right,
Ah,
yeah.
this is so cringy.
yeah,
I think a lot
and
of
I
people feel that.
talking to God is talking straight from your heart. That's how I see it. That's how I see it, really. And back to prayer, and you said you're praying on love and gratitude, on that stuff. It's like, for me, when I'm praying, I'm actually praying, thanking for and praying for the capacity to expand, and actually ability to handle whatever is necessary for what I'm undertaking.
Yeah.
And that is constantly
You're so
remind-
optimized. You're so efficient.
so efficient. Actually, that's a funny thing that I wanted to bring up, because once you did say, as a human optimization coach, I almost cringe, because the reason behind that is, although that is obviously a part of me,
Yeah.
I kind of moved on
Yeah,
from
you're right.
from that life into diving deeper into the business
Yeah.
component of things, and just building and creating. However, I realized that I still have a lot of value, or I didn't realize, I actually got it was reflected to me that there's so much value that I do still have to offer within that space, within, for example, the coaching community, and how underdeveloped a lot of coaches are within the understanding of optimization, what that actually is, and actually how to be a great coach, great person to guide people into the ability to lead others.
Yeah.
And how many layers and components there are, and actually taking the piss out of the whole coaching industry, and how, as I know I'm going to enjoy that, and there is a part of me that really still wants to render that service to humanity.
I mean, you showed me how to coach. That's where I I got my certification under you,
Right.
and it was amazing.
Right.
It was beautiful during Corona times, and it wasn't exactly what I thought it was gonna be. But a lot of it was like actually deep listening and
Right.
and being able to have compassion, and then use your particular skill set of what you've been through in life
Right.
to then help people.
Channel that, yeah.
And that was like actually super empowering. When I had my accident and I was in a wheelchair, I could still coach, and that was
Right.
dope. Like,
Right.
it gave me something to do.
Yeah.
And that's what purpose, right? There'd be like, okay, sessions are usually an hour. It'd be like 2 or 3 hours. They're like, are you sure, Aaron? I'm not charging anything extra. And they're just like, are you sure? I'm like, I got nothing else going on. Like, please, like, let me help you.
Yeah.
But that purpose element, and I've seen that with you, like as you've grown from, kind of utilitarian dude, like everything had
Just
super
purely utilitarian, like purely.
No, you're the most
Yeah, yeah.
utilitarian person I've ever met in that sense,
yeah.
right? Everything had served a purpose, and it had
Right.
no purpose. It was off with its head.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
then now seeing you go into mission, like purpose and mission, and wanting to change the world with the boys at YogiLab and the new businesses we'll talk about, and seeing that shift for you, and I've just been like, wow. And then I seen your heart open, and I've seen you get more into this hippy dippy stuff that would be cringy before, and you're going to kirtans and ecstatic dances and singing circles and all this, and I've been like, whoa, AJ's doing this. Like AJ's going to a kirtan. I'm like, wow, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And you're like really liking it. And I'm
Right.
like, okay. And then all the weird stuff we do in this side of the world for development, like it
Right.
takes us to strange places. But those strange places that people wouldn't think that we'd go to develop ourselves, you know, it might seem fruity or it might
Right.
seem whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be judgy on it. And then when you see that the other end of it, it's like the parts of us that had to die was that armor part, and the softening came through these practices, but the softening actually gave us way more depth and, and strength, right?
It's not that I'm losing myself within them. You know, there's a difference between actually losing yourself within that, I guess, feminine side of the, I guess, I see humans as obviously two sides. You know, we have the feminine component, we have the masculine component, and we do live in accordance with either one of them, right? And most of us as men, especially the ones that are raised in Eastern Europe, we just are told, just don't be a woman, you know, just be more of a man.
Yeah.
And what is it defined as is to be more rigid and to be more masculine, where you're leaning into your physical prowess, where you're leaning into whatever it is that is perceived masculine, right? And a lot of men, honestly, on the other side of things, where they lean too far into their feminine because they think that in order to connect with women, you know, you have to become more feminine, but then they get lost within that femininity and they lose their masculine center within that process. And that is also sad to see. So balancing within on that edge that is pretty thin, to be honest with you, it is challenging. And I never lost myself within that. However, at the same time, I wanted to experience the components of the feminine that I couldn't lean in before.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like dancing, for example. Dancing was such a big taboo for me, like such a massive inhibition.
Yeah.
I would just kind of just, I would just be the most awkward, tall white dude in the middle of the dance floor. Right.
Dance floor,
Yeah, but it's like exploring that movement through music and just getting out of my head. For example, like contact dance. I really fell in love with contact dance, where its ability to just feel another person's energy and kind of go on a journey with them and surrender into it. And it was a really powerful component to just get completely out of my head and allow myself to just move.
Isn't it
there's
crazy?
so much energy that we just kind of just compile, and then just explodes into something else rather than just us releasing that.
No, for sure. Isn't it crazy how like some of the weirdest things that we think would have like a huge impact in changing our perception,
right?
Like ecstatic dance, like that was a weird, like when I first got to an ecstatic dance, I was like, "Where's the bar?" It's like, yo, where do we drink?
What are these people on?
Yeah. Is someone handing out drugs or like, you know, what's going on here? Like, what are we doing here? Because I didn't associate dancing with a group with sobriety for me back in my old lifestyle in the West. You're gonna have a few drinks. It's just how it goes, right? So that was quite interesting to see. Like, hey, you can still have fun totally sober. That was an interesting journey, and just to see all the softening that we can have in embracing like just something new with a new perspective. Like trying some new shit is the growth tip.
Intimacy, that's the biggest component, man. When I see, you know, people in the West drinking or doing drugs before they get into that setting, they automatically create this veil where it's losing the level of intimacy that you can reach with another person.
So
exactly.
They can be intimate.
No, you're
There's
just,
many blockages there.
You're ultimately just empowering those blocks within yourself, and you're just separating further away from each other. Whereas when you are going completely sober, you're more perceptive to vibrations, to all the components of just energy in general, and you're able to have a very deep and intimate experience just within that container. And that's been super, super powerful for me. And it is such a massive shift from that Lithuanian upbringing, from military and all that. And another component that you were mentioning, and we were chatting beforehand, is just that masculinity within that frame doesn't allow anything that is not perceived masculine. And honestly, I was reflecting upon not just masculinity, but my upbringing in general and how that contributed to who I am today. And I wouldn't say it's contributed to who I am today. It's inhibited to getting to the point where I am today.
Yeah.
Like just largely it inhibited.
I'm gonna veto that just a minute because the rigidity that we grew up with, because we had that similar take on this with like our folks being kind of like old school, you know, and masculinity, that old school. But then we went really into the hyper masculine, kickboxing, boxing, you know, just like we're this guys that we had to be, you know, because that was how we felt safe as a man.
For sure.
But then I think it then also gave us the freedom to then go really soft because we already feel secure in our masculine polarities.
Right.
So the fact that we went so into our masculine and like hyper into that then gave us the security to know that that's there and we're there. So we can go on this side. We're still safe. We anchored enough in that. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I see that. I see that. And at the same time, I just know that, you know, from the optimization standpoint, looking at that it was suboptimal to kind of go deeply into that, and it was a massive overcorrection.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we don't have to go through that cycle. You see, we're different from all the other species because we have foresight, and we can actually go into things intentionally and not just be led by our impulses.
Yeah.
So we can actually map out and understand on a deeper level from the psychological standpoint, we can actually understand what is it that serves us.
Yeah.
And that consciousness, when it's instilled and when you're asking those questions on a deeper level, you're able to determine general path. I'm not being delusional and saying that, oh, you're going to map out exactly how life is going to happen. That's just absurd. Exactly. That's just absurd.
Yeah.
Yet that direction and asking those questions is the fundamental piece when it comes to us actually going in the direction that we want to go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, that just ties back because we were talking about plant medicine earlier,
Right.
And the intention part, right? So I
right.
was telling you about in Vancouver, you can buy a DMT vape pen.
Man,
like
that scares me.
you could just rock up and buy peyote, DMT vape pens, mushrooms, LSD in this one store in Vancouver. And I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, holy shit! You know, having done DMT ceremonially, I was like, this is amazing.
Right.
I think it's worth trying. That's cool. But then to be able to do it in like a non-intentional setting where your guys are just like kind of drunk at a party and just to get fucked up and, you know, do drugs kind of thing. I was like, oh, I don't think that's a good idea.
No,
because you're tapping into something you don't understand. You're opening yourself up. And opening yourself up to some stuff you can't understand isn't a good idea.
One of my spiritual teachers actually said that there are way too many forces behind our consciousness that we don't understand. We're more affected by the unknown forces than we actually give credit to.
Yeah.
And that realization, I had that realization with plant medicine, is like that is something that cracks you open.
Yeah.
And when you don't know how to navigate that, you're going to take on so many layers and pieces of somebody else's consciousness and potentially entities
Yeah.
that you might never get rid of.
That scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's like not just it scares the shit out of me. It does to an extent, but at the same time, it also deters me from actually doing any of that stuff because I'm fracturing my consciousness and I'm allocating, you know, piece of myself to something that I'm not even aware of.
Yeah.
And that is the worst part because you can actually collect all that energy and pull back that energy and accumulate that back within yourself and actually direct it consciously rather than allowing someone to take that from you.
That's exactly how I felt when I did Bufo, and it was too much for me. Bufo's a bit scary for me, right? I think DMT was great. I did it ceremonially. It was powerful.
Right.
And I was deep in my practice at the time. But when I did Bufo, I felt fractured. Where it took me a long time to integrate properly. Like a month or two, I didn't feel normal at all. It was noticeable. I just felt like weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, no thanks. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm good on plant medicine for a while. I just want to do because I just want to consolidate my power, consolidate my consciousness. So meditation, yoga, healthy eating, all the stuff you taught me when we lived together.
It's just so easy.
And then I feel powerful, and then I feel more centered. But if I take myself off center with the wrong medicine in the wrong setting with, you know, some shaman named Doug or something like that, it's like, yo, man, you could do some harm, you know. And I think we need to do plant medicines very consciously. Like I'm down to go
skillfully, man.
Very skillful, exactly, right? Within the right intention, the right setting, and you're ready for it mentally. So if you're some guy who's, you know, already not mentally stable and you do a DMT vape pen, 5-MeO, you could do yourself some harm.
And people overestimate their power because they get connected to that oneness and ability to actually connect to that source of everything, that and the delusion of you having access to that at any time kind of is brought back to earth. And what they don't realize, that in order to access that skillfully, there's a lot of training involved.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ceremonies involved. There are a lot of teachings involved that people are not being exposed to. So us being God for a moment is like, we are that for sure. However, passing that on to another person through this unskilled setting, I think it's dangerous.
Kind of like trying to be an electrician without going to school for it, and you're just like, I'm gonna go work with those power lines over there, and it's like straight voltage.
Right.
And you're like, bro, you didn't do any studying, you have no gloves, and you're gonna go just tap into electricity. You're gonna get shocked.
And I'm guilty of that as well. Is that, directing people to certain sources where I wasn't quite. They weren't quite that. The shamans who have been initiated and went through the full training, full cycle. Yeah. And again, it doesn't mean that you get to outsource your power to someone else who is more, I guess, more powerful within. They are more powerful within that setting. So you allowing them to guide you is this. If you are allowing someone to guide you, those would be the people. But what we tend to do is just we tend to outsource the power that we already have within us to someone else and completely give that away. Yeah. And usually it ends up being Doug. And that's a bad idea.
Yeah, man. Like I'm down to go to Peru with Brennan Collinsworth, do warrior retreats. I trust him. I trust his people. And I'm like, that feels like a yes for me. And I let my intuition really guide me on these things. I get offered all the time, like in Vancouver or this and there. They're like, do you want to come do this ayahuasca circle? Like, no prep. It's this weekend. Right. And I'm like, fuck no. Like, I would not do it just on a whim. Like, this stuff needs to be planned. You need to be prepped. You need to mentally prep, physically prep. You need to make sure you know the shaman. You need to make sure, like, you're responsible for your energies.
There are so many steps. And especially for young people, if there are some young people listening, don't mess with that stuff.
Yeah,
it's just really don't mess with that stuff until you're discovering who you really are, because that's not going to be the answer. We tend to.
You think you're going to be fixed from doing one ayahuasca thing, and that's where you're kind of giving your power up, like you said again. Right? It can show you the way. It can show you some stuff, but it's not going to fix you.
No, not at all. Because you actually, that's the point of that, for you to see what is possible. But when it comes to actually bringing it into existence, it's going to require work.
You got to do the work.
And that's why I love business so much, because this is literally that component, that spiritual component that allows me to bring things into the world, rather than leaving them out there in the ethers. Yeah.
I mean, the more we develop ourselves, the more we're able to do anything better. Business, our practice, plant medicines even. But like, I think plant medicines have a beautiful purpose.
They do. Yeah. They do, and they're incredibly, the way I'm seeing the movement go right now, I think they're incredibly dangerous, and the way we're approaching them is absolutely wrong.
It's kind of like AI. It's just like, we got to make sure we're doing this right.
It's just becoming readily available. Exactly. It's becoming readily available, but then you giving that, if you will, a quick fix is actually going to alleviate the pain within that moment, and then is going to come back at you as a shitstorm of so much more stuff that you need to face. So you'd rather go straight to the source and get a skill that is going to give you the ability to face that directly, rather than through this weird, convoluted way.
Outsourcing yourself because you think it's going to fix you, but you got to get the skill. That's why I really like meditation, in the sense that it's a skill to use. That
it's a step-by-step process. You're not going to overstep yourself. You're not going to be taken into.
You're not going to overdose on meditation.
Exactly. You're not going to overdose on meditation. You're not going to be shot out into the universe and explode into a billion pieces.
And then try to figure yourself out until figure yourself back.
Right. Exactly. Until you're actually ready for that, because you're going through that process that is step by step, and it is predictable in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's just people don't want to do the work. Like, it's harder.
Oh yeah.
Meditation's not easy.
It is
go
hard.
to a Vipassana meditation retreat. Sure. Like, there's
it's our work.
All of us want to leave at some point. We're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
The thought crosses your mind every single time, for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm like, why am I day 4 for me in Vipassana? Day 4 is the hardest.
Day 4 is rough. For me, it's like probably day 3, especially if I'm fasting as well. I go into this almost like a psychotic breakdown. My ego is trying to hold on to something to everything, quite frankly, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's throwing a fit, just
That's what Dave always says too. Yeah, because the first
tantrum,
the
man.
first day you're just kind of settling into yourself. The
Yep.
first day is nice because you're like happy to quiet off the world. You
Right.
don't have your phone. You don't
Yep.
have all the people who need you to be something. You just get to just like, I'm chill. And then the second day you start going into yourself though.
Yep.
You're diving into who you are, and that can get that starts getting a little rough.
Yeah.
And then the third day you're doing the psychic surgery work, and you're in your depths of your shit, and it's just like, oh my god.
That hits me hard,
Fourth
yeah.
day death, like it's just so difficult. The fourth day I'm always just like, I hate this, I hate myself, why am I here, and you just like, and then day like 5 or 6 you start like kind of like, okay, like you get your head above it, and you start understanding and see like settling with the darkness,
Right.
and then by day 7 I usually have like a bliss day, and I'm like,
Yeah,
everything's
day
love.
8 for me usually. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
kinda,
yeah.
I just get this melty sensation and mini dissolutions and stuff like
It's
that.
wild. I
Yeah.
think everybody should do a
Yeah,
Vipassana.
for sure, man.
And everyone should serve at one because serving is dope.
Hmm.
I love it. Because like you're just in the metta state. You're just giving loving kindness, and like
Right.
like everything you do is for the people meditating. And I really love that because I'm like just like making their food. I'm like, I really hope they have a beautiful meditation. I really hope that they go get through their shit. Like, may they find peace. May they find peace. And it's like so good for you selfishly to do that. And you also get to talk and you get to eat. So it's like way easier because you meditate like 4 or 5 hours a day rather than like 10. So I'm like, I like serving. It's like chill.
Yeah,
Selfishly. So that's been an interesting thing to see you like grow through that from like, you had a gym in Thailand,
Just
right?
grow in general.
Yeah.
I've done so many things and so I failed forward so quickly.
Yeah.
And one of the I was just reflecting upon this, man, that I'm literally the person who was destined for mediocrity. No, legit. I was like,
What do you mean?
Because the way I grew up,
Yeah.
my environment was just created in a way where my parents were in like a lower middle class, I would say even lower class, in post-Soviet Union, Lithuania, just on survival. It's like survival mode was a daily thing. It's like having abundance of money or resources just wasn't a thing. It's just until my teen years, and obviously never left the country and had limited resources and abilities to see the world or engage with the world at large outside of that bubble. But it was comfortable to an extent where I was taken care of to an extent, and I would constantly get this voice from my grandma or family that, hey, it's enough, it's okay, like it's fine, that this is what it is. This is what life is. And to be quite frank with you, that's how it, in a way, unconsciously led into this whole optimization journey for me. Because you see, optimization is optimized laziness. No, it really is. It's just actually putting pieces into place where you can be, or I chose to be more lazy. Rather than optimize myself to achieve more, I optimize myself to be in that container where I'm comfortable and I'm going to be better than 99% of the population, but I'm not going to be better than 99.9999% of the population. So once I realized that, and I'm, again, as I mentioned, I'm peeling another layer of that currently as we speak, that realization is something that hit me really deep, super, super deeply. And right now I'm realizing that every single layer of optimization is just to uncover another layer of discomfort that I get to face directly, rather than closing myself within that box or within that identity that I've created at that time.
You think like that was kind of like, as you used to be saying, like the minimum effective dose?
Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Minimum effective dose is like a minimum effective dose, as efficient as it might be, is just not going to get you to the point where you are an absolutely exceptional human being.
So
That's
just
the
to break
reality.
it down for you guys, like before AJ had a program, and it's an amazing, it really changed my life how to be just healthier. The minimum effective dose of having a totally holistic and healthy lifestyle. So, just go out in the sun as soon as you wake up for 5 minutes. Just make sure you get a little bit of the meditation in. Just tick the boxes in enough so at least you're pushing the needle forward.
Sure.
What's the minimum thing that you can do to push the needle forward, which is brilliant.
That's helpful, man.
It's
By all
super
means, that's helpful. But
Yeah.
again, it's like that for people who are not doing anything,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yet, if you are striving for mastery and internal mastery and actually moving closer to the truth, the only way to live is to give your full heart, your full attention to that thing without minimizing its importance, without that being minimal.
I'm really happy you brought up the heart, because that's exactly where I wanted to take this. So it's perfect. Was like, but there shouldn't be a minimum effective dose of the amount of heart you put into things.
I don't like saying the word should, but it can be. It cannot. It really cannot be minimal effective dose, because a lot of heart things are wildly inefficient within the world at large. And sometimes seeing some people within my environment and seeing them really give a lot of heart, where it's, in a way, it's almost hurting them from the efficiency standpoint. I really honor and respect that, and then notice that. And it's something that the willingness to do that is true love.
It takes courage.
And that's something that I am willing to admit that I do not have.
Well, you're talking about this, the character armor, right? And this has been a big part of my unraveling, was actually being able to live less egoic and more heartfelt. But it's just the boss move. Like, it actually is a way better way to live. And I have to keep remembering, like, get out of your fucking ego. And if you're living truly from the heart, you're happy. Like, that's a path worth walking.
And just listening to people who would never have an opportunity to be listened to by you, for example, and having those occasional conversations with, let's say, the locals here, or a random person, and lending them an ear and having like a deeper connection, deeper conversation, that matters. That really, really matters. And it does. You probably have met a lot of people who come back to you after having a certain conversation that, hey, this changed my life. It's like, it really made me rethink and question the way I was living life, the direction that I was taking this thing called life into. So
it's an interesting thing, because like, I need to be efficient with my time. So like, I get to the point a lot with people, like,
I do too.
But I give them my time.
Of course.
Like, I will answer questions. I will help people on Instagram. Like, I will, because I know how much that'll mean to someone.
Sure.
And so okay, I'll give my heart there. You know, I will do that. Like, you know, that Indian guy who messaged me good morning for like years now.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's still happening.
It's still happening.
Oh, it's like every day. This guy on Instagram.
Oh, I love
it. Some guy in India. So God bless him. I think his name's Vinod. He's been messaging me good morning every morning for about 4 or 5 years now.
Wow.
Every morning. Good morning, brother. Good morning, my dear brother. Good morning. My dream is to meet you. Good morning, my dear brother. And I'm just like, good morning, bro. Like, good morning, bro. Like I said, I say it back to him, because I know it means something to him, and I'm like, it's low maintenance for me. It's like the minimum effective dose for me is I can just say good morning.
But it's huge.
You know, I know it means something, so I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And but I also know how it feels when somebody doesn't give you the time, like if they snub you, or if they're just not showing up with a heart. And
there is that. You see, sometimes it is difficult.
It's a fine line.
It is a fine line, because we don't know what they're going through at the time as well. That's another component. So we do take it personally, where it's not really personal for the most part. And ability for us to still receive that with love, that's another layer of development that we get to.
This is a catch that we got to develop, right?
For sure.
So I was, my buddy Thor's here, the Viking, he's here, and we had to get him a SIM card. And I went and go to this little cell phone store, and I'm talking to the lady in Indonesian, so there's no reason why she wouldn't really answer me, but she was kind of ignoring me. And I'm like directly talking to her, like, you know, can I buy this one? How much is it? In her language. So, but she was just kind of like pointing at it and not giving me a response. And like, I was bubbling, bro. I was just like about to say, like, why aren't you talking? Don't you want our business? Like in a firm way, like, yo, what's wrong with you? Type of stuff. And it was on the tip of my tongue. And then I was like, wait, understand maybe like what's going on with her? Like, you know, maybe she's even like, you know, a little bit mentally disabled or something. I don't know. But like,
again, there can be so many things. And then it's just funny that we do take that personally, because it hurts us. It's like we're being rejected.
Why are you not paying attention to me? You know, so I was like, I was like, what's going on for her? Like outside of me.
It's an interesting one, man. It's a very interesting one. It's just that getting connected to that heart, as we were talking about, that's the exact component of actually right. And I do have a hard time.
Yes, me too.
With that. And
we're busy people.
And I still don't. When it comes to my time, I do really respect that.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people are kind of seeing that, hey, you're in a certain layer or position of society, if you will, and they're like trying to do the social climbing
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. You sit a mile
And they
away.
reach either they want something from you,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
rather than being genuine. There's a different way to connect when you want something from someone
Yeah.
and when you are actually trying to genuinely connect.
Mhm.
And also, if you are looking for someone's time, please come on, be clear, be concise, and be clear, direct, concise, and genuine.
Just like your
Genuine and
voice notes should be.
yeah.
Clear, concise, and direct. Don't be ordering a coffee and trying to tell me something while you're giving me a voice note.
Yeah,
That pisses me off.
it's because I am more than willing to help people out when they are somewhere, you know, they're trying to understand something
Yeah,
to an
yeah,
extent, right? And they're asking like a very direct question, and they are showing their heart, how grateful they are for that, etc., etc.
heart
It's like
matters.
they really are investing into me answering that question, right? Rather than putting the burden of their question and the lack of clarity of their question onto me.
Yeah.
Like that's not my circus, that's not my monkeys, as you say. You know?
I love that term. Not my
Yeah,
circus. That's my favorite thing.
yeah, that is a funny
It's
one.
gold, right? I
Yeah.
just see something happening that's just not my this is not in my field of fucks to give. And
Right.
I'm just like, oh, that's not my circus.
Yeah, that's something that reminds me of something very, very deep that I've been trying really to connect with, or I've been connecting with, is the responsibility, the extension of responsibility beyond our own field.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not just within our egoic field, or not just within ourselves, not within our immediate
Yeah.
circle, not even our extended circle, but the world at large. That every single thing, for example, child trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, all the foul things that are happening in the world are to an extent the responsibility of ours, of why that's happening, because we're aware of it. And most of us are not doing fucking anything to change that. And that is something that really bubbles within me once I remind myself of it. And I do get petty and egoic, and I forget that higher mission and this extended connection. And every time I do that, I obviously get burnt and disappointed.
Well, it's totally like that's what makes me actually unhappy. Okay, so to circle back to the SIM card lady, as soon as I was like, okay, maybe something's going on with her, and I like sought to understand and have connection there and give her a break about it, I was instantly happier. I was like, okay, I the situation got easier for me.
Right.
Or like when you're in traffic and somebody like is driving super slow, yeah, I'll flip out like I used to. So now I can actually think of, maybe they're looking for.
I drive. I'm sorry if anyone drives around me. It's like I do drive like an asshole.
Yeah.
And it's like it is very selfish
I
of me.
definitely
and-
did.
Yeah.
Now I drive slow.
You had a bad teacher, bro.
He taught me how to drive a fucking
I
motorcycle.
did.
He taught me.
I did teach you.
But the
I
thing
got
is-
a Ducati half a year later, man.
Oh man! But the crazy thing is that that accident wasn't my fault. But when I thought about it, and the Dave told me this before, it's like, okay, maybe this thing wasn't your fault, but somehow indirectly it was because of all the other faults that were yours.
For sure.
So like it's connected. There's
Yeah.
just a karmic weight that
That's-
caused this to happen.
It kind of ties back into what we talked about before, that the weight of the unconscious forces
Yes.
is much larger than we are aware
There's
of.
gravity to this.
There
shit.
is gravity to this shit,
Yeah.
and there's actual gravity to this shit. And when you go into meditation fairly deeply,
Yeah.
you start feeling that gravity,
Oh, bro.
and then you start understanding. It's like, oh my god, every single thread is right there. And when you have those, tell those half lies and go into the direction that is away from the truth, you're putting energy, you're putting money. Ultimately, your investment is going to something that is going to bite you back in the ass 10x of what you put in there. So you're literally feeding this monster slowly but surely, and that monster is instead of growing, as the good monster grows. Like if you feed the same amount of that consciousness to a good monster and a bad monster, if you will, that bad monster is definitely going to become such a massive beast that is going to swallow you eventually, and is going to take you down the drain. And I'm not saying that to just scare anybody, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And us not being aware of that and not aligning ourselves with the heart and the higher truth and that universal, like real truth, where you're genuinely doing things from the heart and in alignment, in accordance with with what you truly believe in, you know? And
Yeah, it's crazy. Did you see the character armor that you had up was in direct conflict for the path of the heart?
yeah,
Like
100%.
yeah, because it was just
100%.
like we're trying to be this facade of a person,
Yeah.
and that is a blockage for the actual connection to your actual heart.
Yeah.
And then it creates all this weight that's a dysfunctional weight that comes out in sickness, and it comes out in dysfunction or crazy shit happening to you.
For sure.
And the more that
Discombobulation, man.
yeah, this distortion of actually like that heart resonance, and my life gets way weirder and like fucked up if I'm not actually just connected to the heart space. But when I am connected to the heart space, I get lucky bounces, like cool things happen, and it's like, okay, I got to stay in that vibe.
It's just precisely. And one of the things that I have learned as well, last year I went through this stage of, for 2 months, I was eating one meal a day, just after sunset, so fasting throughout the day and eating one meal a day, and really, really deepening my practice and kind of reflecting upon, or praying really, like 5-6 times 6 times a day. So we're following that like a Muslim calendar. I have nothing. It has nothing to do with me being Muslim, but it is such a great structure to kind of check in with yourself multiple times a day, right? So that's the best structure that exists, in my opinion. And so we're just following that calendar with a friend and colleague of mine, and it just got me to the point of love and connection and these lucky breaks, as you said, so deeply that it was just it was unreal. I almost was kind of thinking about something, and that thing would come into fruition pretty much immediately. Like this. It was like I was weaving my reality so quickly. It's like the gap between stimulus and response, or I guess the intention and that becoming a reality, it just shortened so much. It was like this. It was just going.
It's so fucking cool to see.
It's wild.
Us able to manipulate reality,
For sure.
Or create our reality. It's not really manipulating.
I mean, it is manipulation, but it's like intentional manipulation and creation,
like in a positive way.
Sure.
And the more that we connect to ourself, which, as we said before, the prayer is actually connection to ourself, God within us. We're able to then connect to and change our realities rapidly. So I know that because I've seen my manifestation powers grow massively as I got more connected to me.
For sure, man.
And it was so dope.
It's wild. And the funniest thing is, it's like when you get to that point, the reality of the matter is that most people, what do they do? Myself included. I dropped the exact thing that got me to the point where I was receiving those benefits,
right?
You know?
Yeah, we let it go.
And it's that, our conscious mind somehow unconsciously thinks that we can drop the labor and still expect the fruits of the labor that we just dropped. So that was something that really, really hit me. And that is what separates a lot of exceptional individuals from the ones that are, quite frankly, average, is not dropping the practices that do get you to the point of mastery, that do get you to the point of connection on a deeper level.
You ever see like those fighters or like boxers, they retire, they get really fat because they just think they can still eat like an athlete but not train like one. That kind of shit's happened to me. You know, I get it. And it's just funny, like, I see that happen, and you know, that connection into actually going deeper into our practice and then seeing how it benefits our reality is a fun one to play with.
Man, it's wild. And I would encourage everyone to really just dedicate more than 5, 10, or 15 minutes to meditation and go into that deeper state. Let's say allocate for just like 30, 60, maybe 90 days if you're committed to just work up to maybe 2, 3, or even 4 hours a day where you're just going into yourself. And especially if you are not where you want to be right now, because you'll see that being in that state gets you to where you want to go much faster than anything else.
Practically break it down for everybody. What would that look like? Like practically, how do you?
I would literally sit on just the most direct ways. Like I would just literally sit down on the mat and literally observe my breath and do nothing else. Like your only job is to observe your breath. Everything that is happening within your life, all the thoughts, all the creations, what have you, like you push them aside, and you when they do come up, you just bring it back to your breath. You're gonna get carried away, and that's natural, of course. That's part of the game. Part of the mind's work, and then you're gonna bring it back. If you do that for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, work up to 3 hours a day for the next 90 days, you'll see how easy it is to craft that reality. And there's nothing else that does that so rapidly.
It's anapana meditation, as what we're talking about, is a game changer. It's wild, and I like pairing that with metta meditation, as the Buddha
Right.
taught. I was never really good at vipassana, to be totally honest. I have a fucking bad attention span, and I'd get to like my belly button and like, meh, you know, like it's always like around there, you know.
Man, belly button, that's an interesting one. That's our power center.
Yeah, of course.
That's our
Metta,
power
yeah,
center, and there's
yeah.
a digging.
Manipura.
Man, digging deep into that, it was like, now that you're saying that, every time I meditate on my belly button, I just get a little bit like I kind of, from the shamanic traditions, it is that power center,
Yeah,
and it is
yeah.
where it's like everything, the threads start, you know,
Yeah.
and every time I go there, I almost get almost nauseous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get almost nauseous, and then there's like a very uneasy feeling that carries me. And actually, if I'm able to kind of roll with it and allow myself to go deeper and deeper into it, it takes me into really, really deep psychedelic state. So that really allows me to anchor that power and
What do
become
you see
comfortable with it.
psychedelically? What goes on for you?
It's just everything. It's an interesting. When I say psychedelically, it's just that heightened,
Yeah.
like insanely heightened awareness that doesn't feel like physical reality at all. So I kind of dissolve as this structure, and I become a very fluid being, a very fluid component.
Yeah.
And it's a bizarre. It's very difficult to put into
Yeah,
words
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like it's just a weird feeling that I'm just kind of, I can connect to it right now. It's like,
Yeah.
but when it comes to putting it into words, like I can't.
Totally, I know what you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah, yeah, it's wild how that works. Like the places that your practice can take you are amazing, but then also, what I see is like, okay, back to the character armor thing, and it ties into what we're talking about is a lot, and I see this in the West now moving back. You know, a lot of people are scared to connect to themselves. There's so much armor up there. They're worried and scared of what's going to be underneath it because it's scary. There's going to be some, you know, underneath this rug, there's probably some shit we got to sweep up.
You
they don't want to deal with
see
it.
that rigidity, man. You
Yeah,
see that
yeah.
rigidity in people. They're
That's why I
kind
drink
of
so much.
all tensed up,
Yeah.
and that drinking
Yeah.
ultimately, as I said, it puts that another veil, and you're not able to actually face it directly, and you're becoming more and more and more disconnected from your true core self.
Yeah.
And it is scary. Like by all means, it is scary, and it is uncomfortable, but you kind of have to choose your discomfort, because one of the discomforts is going to be fighting yourself within that space of you being separated from yourself. Another discomfort is going to be just looking directly into yourself deeply enough where you become comfortable with every single component of,
Yeah, yeah.
of you. And it's just a matter of choice.
But
And
it takes a
both paths are gonna be challenging and
Yeah.
ultimately gonna suck from time to time,
Yeah.
regardless. So
Well, it takes a lot of courage, but it's super worth it to be able to go into yourself and go deep. And it's a funny story because I actually got my mom a session with Richard Mall. Shout out to homie that AJ actually linked me with ages ago. Hypnotherapist, epic human.
yeah, he's
And
great, man.
He's so great, right? I give him, get him so. Probably referred him to so many people. It's crazy. I should get like a points card or something. Like, you know, he because I wanted my mom to help get over an addiction to food. Right? She eats her feelings. And she numb out that way, right?
I mean, we all do.
Of course.
Honestly, we all do.
Of
Yeah.
course, right? And that's her main drug. And I could see that. That's her thing. And so I just wanted to like help her get out of that rut just to see that there's, other ways around it. And so before her session, and I got it for her as a gift. And
Right.
before her session, I saw her like freaking out a bit. She was really, really nervous about the session.
Right.
It's her first time doing anything like that. And just to see her like actually freak out, like really, like she was freaking out about getting the Zoom set up. And I'm like, I'll help you do it. But she's like, about the computer, like the little things, like self-sabotage
sure.
type of vibes of like, I can't do this, so I don't want to do it. And like, she was nervous. And I was like, whoa, okay, look how nervous someone could be to like do the work on themselves if they haven't ever.
Yeah.
It's that first time you like actually scared of it. But then, once you do it a bunch of times,
It's a pattern.
Yeah.
The pattern emerges.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
all the things kind of bubbling up and
Yeah.
and self-sabotage and all those components. I mean, I've been there so many times, and right now that pattern for example of self-sabotage is not that present anymore at all. It's like it pops up, but it's so recognizable that it just kind of fuck off.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
you're not worth entertaining. It's like it's not gonna happen. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's where it got to. However, all the other components of it are still popping up, and I still get to a point where it's like I kind of make decisions that I wouldn't otherwise make. I push. So I push. How it happens for me is just I get to the level of exhaustion where I'm kind of not able to collect myself to the point where I would be able to look at something that I need to look at. So I just kind of push myself with busyness or what have you to kind of
yeah.
to kind of get tired enough so I don't have to look at something
Yeah.
that I know I have to look at. So
Yeah.
that's one of the patterns for me
I
is
know
again,
that one too.
and then really stepping out of work,
Yeah.
of relationship if needed, and just really going back and sitting with myself on my own and really connecting and looking at the thing that I know I need to look at.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, it does take courage.
It's a bitch.
It is. But at the same time, it's like what the fuck else
What else?
is an alternative?
Yeah.
And the alternative is really it's bleak, man. It's like you being a shell of you rather than like your fully developed human being.
Yeah,
And that's sad, man. It's like,
Authentically you and not living from
That's sad.
the armor, but it's not really even armor, it's a shell. It's just
it
so
is.
yeah, you're right. And so I've seen that a lot. And
The alternative is much worse. So that's the reality,
it's
bro.
not
Like
easier.
you know, not at all. It's arguably, not even arguably, it is much harder because then you will get to the end of your days and you are going to lay on your deathbed and you are going to regret that you did not face the things that you quite frankly knew that you needed to face your whole life.
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if people believe in reincarnation, but there is something to it, and you're probably gonna come back and realize, oh fuck, I wish I had done that then. It's like
If you're not like a sea snail, come back as a
gonna
sea
have
snail,
to
like
do it
regretting
again.
that you didn't deal with your trauma.
That's the thing. It never. It's finite, but it is infinite, and I do truly believe in that, and knowing that, and it's a reminder for myself. It's like, it's to be honest with you, I do get complacent, and I do get to the point where it's like, oh, I'm cruising, man. I'm comfortable. I'm great. I'm doing well. I am doing well. I'm doing definitely better than probably 99.99% of the population.
You're killing it
in multiple facets.
Yeah, yeah.
It just doesn't mean that I have arrived.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that if I'm, I guess, better as compared to people who are behind me, it doesn't mean that there aren't people that are ahead of me.
Yeah, and I think the comparison doesn't really even matter. It's basic because that always gets me like worried. You know, I was thinking about that actually because I'm like coming back to meet all you guys, and you guys are all super high performers. And I was like, fuck, man, I got kind of fat while I was in Vancouver. It was good weed, it was good food. You know, it's a good drinking culture. See my friends, his weddings, his events. It's just easy in the West to overindulge, but I wasn't around my hyper productive friends out here.
Right.
You know, I was there building businesses and leading, but here it's like, wow, I'm around guys that I really look up to, but I can't compare because I've done pretty damn good in my own rights, but I enjoy being around you guys because it's inspiring rather than letting it compare. Because there was a day, actually, this was the first day I landed, right? And I was sitting at the Astana and I was just like, man, I miss being around you guys so much just to see like, fuck, you guys are all so hyper productive and just like, and facing going deep into the self-work, like it's just a way of life. I used to say level up is a lifestyle. And I'm like, fuck that, like I miss it. I had FOMO. And it was coming out in almost a little bit of like an envy or a feeling of lack. Like, oh man, am I still growing? Am I enough? Am I this? And then I just had to let myself stop for a second. I was meditating on it. And first I just had to say like, no, you're on your path. You're still pushing yourself. It's okay. And just like so much love and gratitude for you guys. And as soon as I felt that, like, these are my boys. Like, I love you guys so much. I instantly, that feeling of me not being enough, like melted. And it was just like, no, but there's just love. And,
For sure.
And that love is the answer for a lot of us, our feeling of lack and our feeling of envy.
I 100% agree with you. And another component that kind of comes up when you do say that is that a lot of people give themselves a permission to talk themselves out of the realization that, hey, you are not doing as well as you could be doing. All that you're seeing within that other person when you are comparing is the mirror, is a reflection of what you could be and what you are at the end of the day. And that is something that is so painfully obvious to you that it becomes an insecurity in a way. And instead of protecting that insecurity, you have an opportunity to actually step into that
Action.
version of you
Yeah.
and become that, because you know that you are that.
Yeah.
And that is something that really does inspire me. And don't get me wrong, it's like I'm as I'm speaking these things, a lot of the things that I do say sounds like I do have things figured out, and I mentally and cognitively a lot of times understand these components, but I'm not saying that I am applying them every single time.
Yeah, no, it's a wave.
It's just exactly it is.
This is what I saw as well, is like, okay, I constantly need to be tied to my path. Like I have my spiritual practice, I mean, and my development practice, because if I stray too far away from it, I get unhappy. I get really like dysfunction comes into my life, you know, drama or whatever, and my mental health declines. You know, I don't go crazy, but I know I'm not feeling as happy and as heart-led and feeling as well as I could. And the minute I go back to some sort of practice, like just there's so many ways up that mountain, and just making sure you're still doing some stuff, that is gold. Your practice is always there waiting for you.
Right.
It's your friend.
Right.
It's your buddy that's always to be there for you. You just need to go back to your practices. You're always ready to go back to your practice. No matter what's going on in your life, go back to your practice. And that was super important. And the other thing is, I always make sure I'm doing some sort of course or some sort of counseling, some teacher, some sort of I have multiple at the same time, because it's just the way I want to live. It's a better way to live. And I want to do one fucking hard thing like once every quarter, like the Vipassana or something. I really want to do the darkness retreat. That's what I'm like feeling.
I'm actually interested in that as well.
Let's go.
I've done a few days in the past.
Okay.
It's just I felt that it is an interesting one, but I do find Vipassana more powerful because you have to face all the life's things that are being thrown at you. So you are not getting separated from life completely, but you're still engaging with reality rather than you being completely disconnected from reality. Same with plant medicine. So I compare darkness retreat to plant medicine in a way because it is a bit of a shortcut, and it is a sensory deprivation tank. You're just put into this state that is being curated for you rather than you reaching that state yourself.
Interesting.
And that's why I'm not that huge of a fan of that. However, it does, if you do not have a skill or ability to tap into that layer yourself through your own practice, darkness, again, all of these things are beneficial to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I would not lead anyone onto the medicine path before they tried meditation, ever. Like, no single person should do any plant medicine ceremonies, in my opinion, until they sit a 10-day meditation retreat, because you get to know yourself better and you are realizing that it's in your hands. You're not outsourcing responsibility to anyone else, but you're actually being reminded how responsible you are for every single thing that happens to you, for you, with you, through you, rather than trying to be saved by something outside of you. And that's a completely different frame. And once you are within that frame, and most of our society is within that frame, they're blaming the government, they're blaming parents, they're blaming someone outside of themselves for the hardships that they're experiencing. And once you're within that frame, you're never going to win. It's impossible. It's literally impossible to ever win against yourself and really be truly successful in life if you do not take responsibility that this is within you to get everything done and create what you want to create.
That's what's up.
And it's not just, and I'm not saying that you are gonna create every single thing and you have to do every single piece within that creation. The funny thing is like once you commit 100%, you realize that you don't have to do the 100% of that work. Because if you have that 100% commitment that you will do that 100% of work, the allies come in. And then you realize that like halfway in or not even halfway in, everybody makes that journey so much easier. But commitment comes first. You can't phone it in. No,
you can't phone it in. But the allies are super important on your spiritual path. You got to have your homies. Like you just got to have your people that are there for you. We've been through each other, there for each other on so many occasions. And same with the boys. It's like you need that network. Your sangha, your spiritual group, your community, it's invaluable. Now the other part, when you were talking about, we have to go into those dark nights of the soul. Like you got to go into it consciously, and those ego deaths is the times where you're able to then be accountable at the end of it. Because it's usually the ego deaths are like a moment of extreme accountability. You're like, I'm the problem, and it's an ego death. But you know, that's part of actually getting through something. Like everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. That's like the thing, right? That's that whole saying, because that's the same with the self work. You know, everybody wants to be evolved, but nobody wants to see their own shit.
Right. Another thing to kind of wrap that up is, if you ever, like for people who are listening, if you ever are at that place where you're being challenged and you don't feel like you're worth it, and you don't feel like you deserve love, which is the worst place to be in, and there are people within your circle who believe in you more than you believe in yourself, keep those fucking people for life.
Yeah.
Like, just keep those people for life, because those are the ones that might get to the point where you get to believe in them more than they believe in themselves. And that's such a powerful thing to have in your corner as you're going through this wild journey. Yeah.
What's the path looking like you forward? What do you want to do next in your development? What are you feeling?
Man, I just honestly want to keep increasing my capacity to the extent where I can hold all the responsibilities that I'm taking on within the path that I'm on, within education, and giving people a responsibility and power back into their hands, because one of those components is actually treating everything as you own it. Like every single component that in your environment, if you realize that you own a piece of this, not just monetarily, but you own it within spiritual as well, you start treating your environment completely differently, rather than you being at effect and you being this cog in the wheel. You become the center of it. You become the engine of your environment, and that is the ultimate mission as this big picture thing. And zooming in, it does start coming through education. So that empowerment and that understanding that you are responsible for all these components. You do own this as yours, like whether it's your finances, whether it's your physical state, whether it's your mental, emotional state, you own them. And giving that knowledge and power back to you to actually utilize that. Yeah. That is my ultimate mission with the team, and that comes in different forms, for helping people heal, to helping people start the business, to doing organic farming, and spreading that around the world, to starting a construction company that has sustainable materials and actually helps the environment rather than destroying it, to all of these pieces where we have done something wrong as humanity, kind of resetting that balance. That is the direction that I'm going.
I love that, because you guys have blown up and doing so many things that are giving power back to people. Like, I really love that about you and what you guys are up to. But also, the knowledge part. I don't know anybody who listens to audiobooks faster than you. It sounds like I can't believe you, bro. What are you listening to? 2x, 5x? I don't know. Your shit's crazy.
I actually stopped consuming information that much lately, especially because I realized that a lot of that information is clouding my ability to reflect and tap into the inner voice and connect to my deeper intuition, because I would mask my ability to connect deeper within myself, because I wanted like the mind stimulation. It's like that intellectual masturbation in a way. It has become an intellectual masturbation. So I feel like I do enjoy that to an extent, but I don't look at it as personal development anymore. I look at that as more of an infotainment.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I get that too, because I'm always listening to some audiobook, right? And I'm like wondering how much retention I actually have. Also, sometimes just like
it's interesting to test. It's interesting to test, because I am writing a book and finishing that up, and that's one of the encouragements that I do have, is actually to see if you do read a book, or if you do read a chapter, like have a takeaway from that chapter, actually share it with summarize it in your own words and share it with someone who you care about.
Yeah,
And it's like with social media, it's become scrollable media
Yeah,
rather than
yeah.
social media. We're not socializing, we're scrolling through it.
Yeah.
So same thing with that intellectual masturbation, and actually us consuming so much information is not applying it. So that application comes through learning, comes through reflecting, comes through applying it, and rather than just consuming.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's been a huge thing for me, because I realized that it was, again, one of the things that within my comfort zone, way too comfortable with it.
You'd listen to so many books. It was crazy, bro. I actually I recommend this a lot, is like active notes while you're listening to like a book. And so to the takeaway part.
Yep.
So I'll tell my coaching clients, I'm like, okay, here's a book that's that's what you need at this time. But I want you to then take notes of the parts that stick out for you and how they transfer into your life.
Right.
So how are you going to apply this? So say if it's a marketing book, or say whatever it is, okay, now how are you going to use that exact information in your business or in your lifestyle?
Man, but that's the thing for people who are listening. This is an overcorrection at this point, for sure. Because if you're just starting out, go into the breadth of it. Just go and listen to as many books as possible, and then you're gonna kind of find the pattern that all of them repeat.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna realize that, okay, so these are the things, these are the principles. So every single person I would encourage to, over their lifetimes, to write out 100 principles of what they believe in. And those principles will allow you to understand what is it that is really true for me. And that's one of the components that really made me realize that if we do live by the principles that we have outlined, they obviously can change and shapeshift and all that. There's not going to be an instance that is going to be an exception to that.
Yeah.
Because I personally have seen way too many times where I'm not following the principle, and by me not following the principle, the little things become exceptions.
Yeah.
Because I'm making excuses based on an instance rather than following the principle itself.
Yeah.
And that's something that is being mirrored to me currently, and that's something that I want to and I want to eradicate that from my being and from my persona, because I'm not just saying that I want to be better and I want to be more optimized and more as in, not in, you know what I mean. It's like I don't have to explain that. It's like I'm not accumulating for the sake of accumulation.
Yeah.
I'm truly going through the process of evolution, and that process of evolution is incredibly important, and it doesn't come through words, it does come through actions.
It's so fucking important though, that path of evolution, like to actually continuously be bettering yourself, because like what other way is there to live? Like I feel like if you're, like Dave said this a bunch of times, it's either growth or decay.
Right.
So if you're consistently growing in life, that's just in alignment to what all this is.
Yeah.
And if we're just not growing, like you're decaying, you're just not getting any better, you're getting worse. Right. Yeah. And I really believe in that. And that's why I really also feel like, if I'm not doing some studying, or I'm not just doing something a little bit better than usual or better than before, like I don't feel as good as I do. I feel happy when I'm growing.
Because we delude ourselves into coming back to that status quo.
Yeah.
And that is something that we have to actively fight against, because we are going to start to decay. We are decaying every single moment. We are getting older.
Yeah.
You want it or
I'm
not.
feeling it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an antidepressant, to be honest.
It is.
I'm pretty prone to depression. As a teenager, I got a lot of concussions. It fucked up my brain chemistry, so I was pretty prone to depression. I think that's why drugs were so
same here.
So easy
boxing
to get into. Yeah. Kickboxing, ice hockey, all that. So I was like prone to depression. That's why drugs felt good, because
they alleviate that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then what I saw was a good antidote for that was obviously gratitude and growth. Those two things were like, okay, I can feel a little better.
I'm doing a thing.
Yes, I'm doing a thing. I always need to be doing a thing. I think it's also a bit of like if I'm busy, I have to be busy all the time.
Right.
It's definitely a pattern of me, negative and positive, and now I'm really trying to put more heart into what I'm doing.
Right.
Because I can just be busy for the sake of being busy, much like people come in and, kind of like when you go into a room and you ask, hi, my name is this, and you don't even listen to what the person's name is, like it just goes over our head because we're so busy being busy, like trying to and so then like when you actually put your heart into it, you'll remember their name and repeat it back to them, the conscious awareness.
And whoever is listening as well is like all these components that we're addressing is like it's a lot. It's just like it can seem overwhelming. It's like it's knowing that this never ends is one key, and knowing that this never ends is not a bad thing. That's a beautiful component to it, because I do feel like shit sometimes when I wake up and go into those depressive bouts from time to time. But the amount of time that it takes me to snap out of them is a fraction, like literally a tiny fraction of what it used to be. It used to be debilitating for days, weeks, sometimes. Then it was hours. Now it only takes minutes or seconds sometimes. So knowing that, that window of discomfort, it contracts as the more you get comfortable with it, and that this is inevitable part of life.
It comes with the tools that we learn, right? So I know that because I still get depressed, but I know that I have tools to get through it now. Like I know what works now. So it came through a process of trying to work at it, because it sucks living unhealthy. Like it sucks living unhappy. We can change that. Pain is a part of life, of course. Suffering is a part of life. What pain is, but suffering doesn't have to be. And we can alleviate that by just doing the work and having good people around us. Right. It's so important. Speaking of like these missions, tell everybody about what you got going on. With the boys in Uluwatu. What's the mission for the company? The incubator. I'm interested in that too.
Man, the incubator itself is contributing to every single component that allows people to gain their power back, mainly through education. So we have a lot of educational projects. The one that is really exciting right now is Breath Masters. That's been blowing up, and another one that we just launched is 90 Breathwork. So that's within like a spiritual business side of things. Another one is a construction company that we're building out with renewable materials. Then the online university that is coming soon as well. That's massive. Super excited about that, and there are quite a lot of them. But if it just depends who wants to do what. But when it comes to like application, and if you're looking to go through something and kind of process things, breathwork is definitely one of those components that I'm incredibly grateful for, and it's served me a lot, and that's why I decided to build a business around that. Another one is just infusing wellness into everything that we do. So starting that new wellness revolution. So Istana, as you know, is going global. So that is a super exciting project, because every time I travel anywhere around the world, no matter how good it is, every time I'm traveling, I get quite depleted, and I don't have the Istana around. And once we go back there, it's rejuvenating. It makes me feel like a
luxury meditation retreat center, biohacking center, founded by Dave and down in Uluwatu.
Right,
place is gold.
Yeah,
all the
it is
biohacking.
absolutely. It's just biohacking, community, energy, all of it. It just allows us to really connect deeper to ourselves. So that's a super exciting project that I'm really looking forward
I'm really
to.
stoked how biohacking is becoming mainstream. Like
I am too.
It's dope, because you were like I learned about biohacking from you. Like that was like, oh, this is a thing. Cool.
Right.
Really years ago now, and then now seeing biohacking is becoming a way of life for people, and it's cool to recover. It's cool to take care of yourself. Like it's becoming cool.
And it's funny to see people. It's like that they're taking a bit too far without understanding of the actual benefits that it has, and kind of investing way more time and energy into something that doesn't have that high of a return.
Like what?
So over the years, I mean, I guess red light therapy or stuff like that. It's like it doesn't, like, you kind of over the years. So I tried all of those things, or a lot. I mean, mostly, So realizing that, okay, this has a good investment on my time, energy, money, and everything else, and this doesn't. So realizing that really.
Give me a couple examples. Or the top pluses and top wastes.
Man, it's just so much. Top waste is definitely going into, I guess, red light therapy chamber if you have access to sun.
Okay.
Fair. Stuff like that, and stem cells. Doing stem cells without changing your lifestyle, your nutrition, and actually incorporating some sort of fasting into your routine.
Okay.
Supplementing as you're trying to offset your shitty life
Yeah,
decisions and
yeah,
choices
yeah.
rather than actually improve your state.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those would be a few
Okay, that
examples.
makes a lot
Yeah,
of sense. I think
yeah,
I'm
for sure.
guilty of that sometimes too, where it's like nootropics and all these like healthy brain like reishi mushrooms and all that, and then I'll like smoke a blunt.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, I stopped taking all nootropics honestly because I was
yeah,
how much I was
you're
in
about
them,
it.
and it's like, and I knew like all the combinations and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I stopped them completely. The only thing that I do take right now is I do drink is tea, and I do not do that within 90 minutes upon me waking up. Because the
Yeah,
best thing that you
yeah.
can do is just to kickstart your system completely naturally through movement, sun exposure, cold showers, what have you. Whatever it is, first 90 minutes of the day, just avoiding any stimulants at all whatsoever, allows you to actually put you into the state where your body is naturally producing that necessary cortisol to get your system started. Yeah.
I got to do that. I used to have like
Yeah.
matchas, coffees,
I mean,
whatever.
yeah, one of
right
my
as soon as I wake up.
yeah, some of my colleagues as well as like upon waking up, they have a coffee waiting for them
Yeah.
already. It's like, no, you can't do that, man.
I
It's
know.
like,
It's such a hard one to break, bro.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
love having a coffee when I wake up
For
and
sure.
get me going.
I know what you mean.
But now I'm like, okay, get your movement, wake up, breathe, meditate, like do your thing first, and then
It doesn't, or you don't have to even do the whole routine. It's like literally, if you wake up, go outside and jump around a little bit. Like
Yeah,
literally jump for 2 minutes. It's like up and down and drink some water. That's gonna do it. Like I promise, that's gonna do
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah,
try that.
I think one of the best things is like I really integrated was of course like the sea salt, water, lime, like sueros. It's just like
Yeah.
having the right hydration as soon as you wake up is
For sure.
gold.
Oh
Like,
man,
that's,
yeah.
that's the,
You
that's the
you
bomb.
you get to replenish all the pieces
Yeah.
within yourself because we lose so much water through
Yeah.
respiration
Yeah.
when we sleep, especially here in tropical countries.
Yeah.
Tropical
Have you
countries.
done the whole like tanning your balls thing? Like, does that work?
I mean, works for depends for what exactly you're looking for.
Your
Is like
butthole.
it is. Of course, I've done it. It's
Yeah.
like it does have some merit,
Yeah.
for sure. It's just one of the things that, and it is quite pleasant actually. Like, but I haven't
Yeah.
done it for a while, so
Okay.
I will. Yeah,
You tan your asshole tomorrow. Let me know how it goes.
yeah. Don't do it in the direct sun at noon
Or
for
around
for
children.
too long, or around children. Preferably.
Don't do that. Oh man, no, it's been great just jamming with you, bro. I was really excited. What I wanted to share with everybody, and my intention, I meditated before you got here, was like, I just want people to see that it's fucking cool to be in the path of the heart and to actually be a big strong man and be a business CEO boss and just to be a boxer, all these like tough guy things. But really the toughest guy thing I've seen now is to also be soft while you're at that, so you can be integrated in being a soft loving human being while you're also dangerous. And I think that's like being a real man these days. That you can really love deeply, you can soften, you can dance,
That's a beautiful
you can
reflection,
sing,
man.
you can do these things. And I've just been proud of you, seeing you grow into that, because I've being your close friend, seeing this journey of how you've grown into that and soften. And I've been like, I really respect you for that. So I honor you for that, my friend.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for making the drive up here and the traffic and all that, and coming up to Lighthouse. And thank you to Lighthouse for hosting and producing this podcast. If you'd like to have your podcast produced, go to Pod Squad. This is a shameless plug for Lighthouse Studios in Bali.
Yeah, no, that's it. Literally is like if I lived in the States or Australia, it's like, and I know how much it costs to produce things there. It's like and make a vacation out of it as well,
Yeah.
and still all of it being probably cheaper than doing it back home without the travel.
Yeah.
It's like I just
It's the
fly
win.
over here, get shit done.
We're also doing it abroad too, so people who want their podcast or their content done, we have it's your editing bay offshore,
Right.
and it's a great deal. So yeah, hit us up, and thank you for
Oh, so
listening.
you're leveraging cheap labor. Gotcha.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
done.
We have children doing all the work. They're really good with computers now. It's crazy. These kids, it's just,
These AI
yeah,
children.
you just give them some Adderall and put them in a room. It's great. You put it in their juices. We just crush it up and put it in their juice.
Children over 18, by the way.
No,
That
like
obviously is
7.
different.
I'm just kidding. There's still 7-year-olds working here at Lighthouse. They're all at least 12. Thank you, bro, for driving up. Appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace out. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ink Pray Love podcast. I hope you found it inspiring, entertaining, funny, and also feeling a little bit more present and connected to yourself. Please leave a review and like and subscribe and do all those things. I'd really appreciate that. As well as if you're feeling in a giving mood, this podcast is there for the charities that I love to support. Go to www.arenbaya.com/charity and get some of those good karma points. This podcast is brought to you by Lighthouse Studios in Bali, as well as Full Reset Coaching. That is my coaching practice. And if you're looking for help in business, inner game impact, and building your legacy to be something you're proud of, your brand, your business, and how you walk the earth and who you impact, and also having the mindset and the heart set to be able to be happy handling it all, I'm here for you. Just DM me. Let's go. Peace out, homies. I'll see you on the next episode.